Our speaker today is Cheryl Mitchell, which I should be able to read. She is the recruiting lead at Matrix. She's going to be talking about resume and LinkedIn advice from a tech recruiter. That's what everybody wants to know. She has 5 years experience working with the HR and recruiting field, primarily in technical recruiting for enterprise environments. Prior to recruiting, she worked as a chef in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she was part of the team to open her company's largest restaurant, Pacific Catch. She is currently employed as a client delivery lead for one of Matrix's large fintech clients, leading recruiting delivery, managing recruiters, and looking at ways to increase success. She gets great satisfaction from working directly with candidates and hiring teams, identifying pain points, and helping to successfully bring people together. She has always found it very rewarding to be able to change people's lives on a daily basis. Outside of her day job, she really enjoys travel. Good luck with that. Exploring Austin, gardening, cooking, of course, spending time with friends and family, and has recently been binging too much stuff on Netflix, as have we all. And so with no more delay, let me introduce Cheryl Mitchell.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here, and thank you everyone for joining. I wanted to take some time to speak to you all about resumes and LinkedIn. I look at resumes constantly all day. I look at some really great ones, and then I look at some not so great ones. So I want to share, some tips and tricks of how, to get your resume, up to the next level and really showcase, your skills and help to promote yourself. I work, as Kathy was saying, I primarily work within the enterprise space. So working with a lot of ATS systems, a lot of managed service providers, a lot of vendor management systems where, resumes need to be pretty simple. We see a lot of resumes that, use a lot of different fonts, use a lot of different font sizes, use a lot of different colors, either too long or too short. And those are all, issues that, we see daily, and they're easy fixes for a lot of people to, really get their, profile up to the next level. So I'm going to share my screen. I did a little presentation, some slides, just, some tips on, what to look for, and what, you can do to improve your profiles as well. Yes. So awesome. Thanks so much. So the model of resumes that I like using the best is the made, saved, ditch model. This is a pretty common model, and it's really about highlighting what you've been able to do in your current company, past roles, and how you can bring that to the next employer. So made, it's what did you make for your company? Did you make them money? Did you increase sales? Did you launch a new product? Did you make a new process? Something like that. And be specific. Add numbers. I increased by a certain percent. I made $4 million on this project. Things like that. The same with saved. I saved time by implementing this process. I saved money by not having to rehire an employee because I did a more thorough reference check or things like that. And then achieved. I've seen it both ways, both with personal achievements and then also being part of your group and project. I like to include successful maybe products that you've launched, any awards or recognition that you've achieved or awarded, things like that. Those are going to be really great because it shows that past companies you were recognized for your performance, and these are definitely things that hiring managers, HR, recruiters, we all look for. And I like to have these both on your resume and on your LinkedIn. And so that's those are areas that are easy changes to really be detailed and highlight exactly what you can do. So on the resume space specifically, I work in the ATS space where it's an applicant tracking system. We need to have pretty simple resumes. No tables, no lines, no graphics, no headers and footers. I would say have two different resumes. One, you should have a pretty simple resume, and then you can have one that's a little bit more robust for enterprise level companies. With this, the reason why tables, lines, graphics get really messed up is because when they get put into a system, all that formatting can be lost. And so, it's really important to think about it from that perspective as well, of what is the reader of your resume or profile going to be looking at. Word files, typically do the best. PDFs are fine too, as long as they don't have, like the tables inside. PDFs can get kind of funky sometimes, especially if you're using a font that, isn't as well known across both PCs and, Mac OSs. The other thing I see is, making sure to use kind of known titles and sections. If you're like a project manager, put you're a project manager. Say you're like a customer support specialist, put customer support. Like my title, I'm a client delivery lead. Not a lot of people know exactly what that is. It's a really fancy title for a technical recruiting lead. So, something like that, if I was looking for a new position, I would put, like recruiting lead in parentheses or something like that. Not everybody will have the same titles across companies, and sometimes it's hard to know exactly what you're doing. And the other thing with ATSs, what I see is, people being a little bit apprehensive to make changes to their resume and make edits. With these, we're looking for people that, are really close skills fit. And so unfortunately, it's not on your resume. A lot of companies will make the assumption that you don't have that experience. And so, that is something that, you should keep in mind. The other thing that we see a lot is, kind of with the formatting is fonts and sizes and colors. Calibri font is the #1 most common font for resumes. Size 10 or 11 is best. Please don't make it any much smaller than that. It really hurts our eyes to read it. And when you get a 9 or 10 page resume that's in size 9 font, and it just goes on, it makes it really difficult for the reader to, one, figure out what you do, and to just read your resume. The other thing we see is resumes with a lot of colors. Another, it's hard to read. I know that's kind of the in thing right now, but it just makes it more difficult for the person who's reading it to figure out what you're doing. And that's the point of your resume, is to let everybody know what you've done, what you've achieved, and what you can bring to the next company. Please don't add photos to your resumes. I know a lot of people do this, but it's a really easy for people to discriminate against you right off the bat. Age, gender, national origin, those are all some areas where photos can be unfortunately means for discrimination. It also just causes a lot of issues with parsing it in and making sure that it's a clean format. The other thing we see is a lot of times listing specific tools or technologies or experiences, just like in a professional summary, or just mention of it with no real specifics about how you use it. So what we look for is knowing that you have that experience. Where exactly did you use it? How did you use it? What was the capacity? There's a lot of tools that are out of the box tools that can be used for a lot of different purposes. And then there's a lot of tools that are, can be customized as well. And so especially with, technical recruiting, we want to see what exactly you've done with it, not just, I have some experience maybe from 10 years ago. The other things, having, running and spelling and grammar and having somebody else look, over your resume and critique it, that's really important. You will always see something different from what somebody else will see it. And the more people that can critique it, even if they're not in, the same field, they can look at things, like spelling, grammar, and, just looking to see if sentences make sense, things like that. And then, the other thing I really promote is making your LinkedIn as your digital resume. I spend, I would say, 75% of my time recruiting, sourcing, and verifying on LinkedIn of my day. What I really like to do is make your resume the same as your LinkedIn. As you know, on LinkedIn, you can have your summary section and then also your experience. What I like to see is under each job, have your responsibilities there, making sure that, all the dates line up, the titles line up, the companies line up. I use this as verification. Many other companies will use this as verification as well. And so if it doesn't, match up between the two, that's going to be an automatic red flag. Many companies will ask you about that, and then there'll be other companies and other recruiters who will just say, this doesn't make sense, and move on. The other thing that I really like to see is giving and getting recommendations. I feel like this is an area where, people don't necessarily utilize it as much as they can. I love giving recommendations to other people, asking them for recommendations, both for, past colleagues, people that worked under you, past managers, things like that. LinkedIn is also, a great place that, you can post like an external link to like a portfolio or like your website that you have. That's really common. A lot more companies, especially in the digital space and the creative space, ask for people to have portfolios or websites that they can go and click on, see your work, and see what you've done. So that's a great place. You can also upload a copy of your resume directly to LinkedIn. This can pose a problem. You can't really get the right information out of it, and sometimes it's really hard to see. It's good to also, put possibly an email address on there, one that maybe you create for job searching if you are uncomfortable posting a public email. It just makes it easier for recruiters to contact you, companies to contact you, instead of having to wait for you to accept a message from them. And then the other thing is, having a professional photo there. We see a lot of profiles that don't have it. I understand that. I think you should have a professional photo, and I think it looks great. Let me see if I can share my screen, and I can show you my LinkedIn profile, what I'm talking about on, including kind of your resume into your LinkedIn. Give me 1 second. So like a bunch of different windows open. So as you can see, we can do this. So as you can see, up here, I have, my title and, professional picture. I have, a small about section. This could be the same professional summary as on your resume. I tend to stay from like objective statements and more of, a summary of your qualifications. I think that's, where resumes are moving, and it's another area to really promote and sell yourself further. And so this is what I'm talking about below. It's really making your, LinkedIn as a digital resume. So this is all what would be on my resume as well. I added this award and recognition that I was given for my time with the Adecco Group. And so things like that, I achieved this award, and so I want other people to, see it and, use this to, help promote myself further. Definitely want to have my education there, full education, whichever your highest level is, I would put that there as well, along with any, activities as well. Volunteer activities you can also put in any other, skills that you've taken or certifications that you've got. Definitely want to have those there as well. And then, just kind of, let me see if I can do this again. The other thing, I talk to candidates, all day long. We really like candidates that have a really, great attitude and personality and positive outlook. More and more companies are, using this as a kind of identifier for candidates, and they're asking more and more, even for the technical roles, to have business acumen, have strong emotional intelligence, have a can-do personality, and those are all areas where we can all improve on. It's a constant learning experience for all of us. So those are some things. And I understand job searching is really tough. It's really tough. I've been a job searcher. I talk to job searchers every day, but every single person that you interact with, you don't know if they're going to be offering your next position or next position in the future. Don't burn those bridges. And overall, I want you to all know you will be successful and you will land in the role that you're supposed to be in. It might take some time. As you heard from my little bio, I did a career transition myself. I left the hospitality industry after 5 years and I went into recruiting, and it did take some time, and, but it's possible, and I've been working really hard ever since, and, you can get to that level. So that's kind of what I have for my presentation. I'd like to open it up to see if anybody has any questions or, anything that they might, need help with on, or questions about what I said or anything.
Yeah. If nobody else has questions, I have questions. But
there's a question on LinkedIn, on the chat.
On the chat?
Can you tell us if most resumes need to go back 10 to 15 years? Should LinkedIn stop there too? So should it match your resume exactly?
I think it should. The reason for that is because, as I was saying, we use this as verification. We want to see that your resume matches up with your LinkedIn. There's plenty of times where I've seen a candidate resume where the companies might be the same, but the dates might be off. And once you kind of investigate or dig further, you find, unfortunately, many of those times where it's not accurate, there's red flags as to why. Either they didn't work there during those times, it wasn't actually that long. There's a lot of fake profiles out there as well, unfortunately. So those are things that we look for.
Does it also help when you're an older worker looking for work?
I think so. For older, I've heard things of, cutting it off. I have clients where their requirement for the company is to have full work histories no matter what. And so we have to a lot of times go back to candidates to get full and complete work histories. And so, I think it's good to, as I was saying, to have a couple different versions of resumes. I would definitely have one that has, your full and complete work history. And then maybe you have one that goes back, like 10 years where it's, more relevant to the roles that you're going towards. And like for me personally, I don't put my, chef positions on my resumes anymore. I just keep my recruiting roles. But I have a resume, if I had to provide one, with my complete work history. I did that because I'm not looking for chef roles. I'm not looking to work in the hospitality industry. And it's hard when you're making that transition. On LinkedIn, I would include it. You can include it at the bottom. And on the resume, what you can do at the bottom is put like the company name, the dates, the location, but you don't need to have, 5 or 6 bullets under each of them. You can just have like one bullet summarizing what you did in that position.
Somebody has asked a follow-up for that. What if you're greater than 20 years is very relevant? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so I agree with that. There is some relevancy, but as technologies change, it becomes a little bit less relevant, unfortunately, for me to say. What I would do in that case is, what I was saying is put the company that you worked for, your job title, when you worked there, and maybe like one sentence, summarizing what you did on the project and what you achieved. And you can put that at the bottom, and not have as detailed as or positions that are more current.
Somebody has said, everybody has their own views about this. He says, I understand you don't have photos on resumes. However, people want to see a picture on LinkedIn. So doesn't that lead to unconscious bias and discrimination anyway? And the other question this person asks is, what if I don't want my LinkedIn profile to be my resume and I state it so on my profile?
Those are great questions. So, if you don't want to have a picture on LinkedIn, I can understand that as well. What I find, from the technical space, and I'm not saying this, this is more of a general thing. People that don't have complete LinkedIn profiles, they don't list a lot of stuff, they're not easy to find, they don't have pictures. Those are all red flags for recruiters. Especially in the technical space, if you're doing any type of development position, those are all really strong indicators of fake profiles and fake people that don't want their real information out there. Everybody, I agree, has a different opinion on this. This is just what, I've seen and, heard from my recruiting, colleagues as well. If you don't want to make your LinkedIn your resume, that's fine too. It just makes it difficult for people to search for you. The more information that you can have on your profile about relevant skills and relevant information about positions, it's just going to help you, go higher. The way that LinkedIn ranks people, they come up in searches based on relevancy on the searches that we run. So if one profile has more information and possible, matching keywords or matching searches, that person's profile will come up higher versus somebody's profile that doesn't have as much information. And so those are the reasons why, we like to have complete information. And, with a recruiter license, even if it's private, like we can see your profile, FYI.
I was just answering a question, but I'll ask it as well. This person has said, this person's been working for a long time and says, do you recommend sending attachments, an attachment with your references, or put in a footer references available upon request? You said no footers, and I'm just telling her that references available upon request is an obsolete phrase that people shouldn't use anymore. But
I agree, Kathy.
And then when in your work history, when should you provide references? Just wait until the company asks for them. Sometimes recruiters will ask for your references early on, which we have red flagged as a problem when you haven't been interviewed yet or whatever, and people already are asking for your references.
Yeah, and those are great questions. So I wouldn't put references available on request. I think it's assumed that we should all have references available. And the other thing is you should speak to your references before giving them out. I know that, a lot of people say, use me whenever, but we've come into cases more often than not where references are not available. They don't get back to us. They don't answer the questions that we need. And so that just delays the hiring process. I would have them available in a separate Word document. Both phone and email is best. And I would have at least 3. The reason why is most companies want to have 2 references, preferably from direct supervisors. And so if we can't get a hold of your first 2, we need the third one, so we can finish your onboarding process and not delay offers, not delay starts, things like that. And so I would say, in certain cases, I've worked a lot of different positions throughout my career. I've worked go-to-works where, I make the hiring decisions and you show up to work the next day. I'll need references, of course, before I interview you. Whereas, the technical positions and higher level positions, typically we do references in either pre-first interview or right after the first interview, but we ask for them before that. Does that answer the question about references?
That's perfect. Here's another one. This person says, what is the top 2 issues from hiring managers, or what are the top 2 things they look for?
Well, I would say, the top 2 things that they look for is, skills that are relevant to the job that they're looking for. If somebody doesn't have a specific skill and the manager wants that and they just don't have it, like, unfortunately, they're going to pass. The other thing is, people putting a long laundry list of technical skills and they haven't really worked on them. And that goes back to saying exactly where you've worked on specific things. You can have a whole technical summary with every single technology you've ever used in your career. That's not as helpful as, saying like, I used, say Java 8 on my project yesterday.
Okay, so I was going to ask. And so,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
No.
Were you not finished with your answer?
Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
I apologize. I thought you were finished. Anyway, I had a question, and somebody else has just posted as well. We advise people. Are you familiar with JobScan?
I'm not.
Okay. JobScan is a tool that people can run their resume, and the job posting that they're going after through the job scan process. And it's very similar to what an ATS system does. It reviews the resume for keywords and gives you a score. And it advises you not to apply for that job with that resume until you get your score up to 80%. And then it says, these are the keywords you need to populate throughout your resume in order to get your score up to 80%. And so it gives you lots of information about formatting. Your dates have to be formatted this way, and your titles have to be formatted this way in order to get your score up. And there is a trick that we recommend that's called a T-chart. And so far, the people that have used the T-chart as page 1 of their resume have been able to get their resume through the applicant tracking system, through JobScan. They get their score up to 80% very quickly. And very often then their resume gets in the hands of a person. But the T-chart is just what it sounds like. It is a chart. And what it really does is it says, here are the requirements that you're looking for, and here's how I match those requirements. But it is a table. It's a Word document, and it's a table. And I know that in the early years, applicant tracking systems had a great deal of trouble with lines, with tables, with boxes, with anything like that. But it has been the experience of lots of people that these days, if the applicant tracking system, if JobScan can't look at it, then ATS systems can't look at it. But JobScan can deal with the T-chart, and it's been a very effective way for recruiters and hiring managers to see, without reading through the entire resume, to see very quickly, yes, we're looking for this and you have this. So you need, we have. You need, I have, you need, I have, you need, I have. But it's a table. So what kind of ATS system does your company use?
So I use Bullhorn. I've also used a couple others, eRecruit, Smart Search, Cosmos, a bunch of others. Our ATS system doesn't have the issue with parsing in with tables as much. It's a lot of companies' internal ATS systems, especially with like the vendor managed or the managed service providers. A lot of those are the ones that have issues with the formatting and graphics. So when submitting to those companies, like Fieldglass or like Beeline, those are two of the largest, like BMS and MSP. Those are the ones that really have issues where we see, maybe not working out as well. My overall advice, I would still say to remove the chart and maybe put it in more of just like a lined version, so you can avoid any type of issues. And as it gets more evolved, of course, ATSs are becoming better and better, but there's still tons of companies out there that have really outdated systems. So we have to look at those as well. They might be doing, going through a transformation, but they're still using really legacy technologies. And those still will have those same issues, unfortunately.
Okay. So we have a question here that says, how do you customize your resume, targeting the resume to the job, and still maintain a more generic LinkedIn?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So with LinkedIn, I would have more of like a generalist profile there of your generalist resume. If you have a specific job and you want to edit your resume for that specific job, do it and then upload it for that specific job. And if it's like something that you use extensively, but maybe you don't list it on your resume, I would definitely list it on your LinkedIn. But I know there's a lot of different companies out there with a lot of different technologies that you might have touched on or maybe used a little bit. And just you can add that, but I would still keep your LinkedIn generic, but in the sense of still going with the made, saved, achieved formula.
Okay, here's another one. How do you communicate effectively a tool or a technology that you've been trained in, but you haven't had the opportunity to actually use professionally?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's a lot of, it's constant. You're constantly learning, you're constantly being trained. I would just say, that you have taken courses or you've been trained in this. To be honest, I wouldn't list it under jobs. We have, how we usually do resumes is we do like a professional summary at the top, usually around a quarter of a page to a third of a page. You don't want it too much longer than that. And then, your work experience followed by, education and certifications. You can put training there as well, any courses that you've taken.
So do you think it's appropriate to have maybe technical skills where you list all your technical skills that you worked with?
Definitely.
And then have courses, technical courses, and have those so you can differentiate?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I also think, you have a technical summary of, the tools and technologies that you use the most. And then if you use a specific tool on a project, I would put that under the project that you used it on. And then, underneath, education certifications, that's where I would probably put, like, I took, say it was like a course from Amazon, like your AWS certification, you can put that down there. Or, say you took like a Java programming certification course, like Sun, you can put that there as well.
Okay. Some people are, I'm sorry.
I just had one other question. Around technical skills, I was working with somebody on my resume and they were saying, you really don't need to include Microsoft Office on there. People, most people know that everyone uses that platform, which, I mean, I'm a strong technical person, but I know when I see it, sometimes job descriptions list out even basic applications. So should those be on the resume? I mean, I have a strong technical background and I struggle right now with trying to keep a general resume, and then people saying, well, you really should keep it to 2 pages. You shouldn't have all those technical pieces in there. But I don't think it goes through the ATSs as well, because a lot of the job descriptions specifically ask for, I have an instructional design background. I've used various tools. Mm-hmm. So where would you put that piece in your resume?
I would put that under technical skills as well. And I agree with adding it because I see more and more companies asking for that. I know that, we probably all use it. And I hate to assume things because, that's exactly what it is. But more and more companies are using that. And I've definitely had rejections on things like, oh, they don't have Visio listed on their resume, or, they don't have Jira experience. Those are both super easy tools to learn and pick up. But those are some of the small rejections of resumes that I've seen. So I definitely add it, and especially if you're like advanced level of it, I would put advanced Office, advanced Excel, and, like I can do pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, create advanced formulas, things like that. And so that's like another differentiator. Is it advanced Office, or is it just kind of basic Office user as well?
Okay. No, thank you. That helps, because I struggle with the technical piece. How much do I include? How much do I not? And being a technical person, even though some of the roles I'm looking at aren't as technical, a lot of the jobs still require technical skills.
I agree. I would say, because I work on technical recruiting roles, but I also do a lot of non-technical recruiting roles as well. And I'm seeing a lot more crossover where the non-technical roles are asking for advanced SQL, advanced Excel, scripting. And so I think it's, there's going to be a lot more crossover, especially as we get, further into this digital transformation, where non-technical roles are going to be asking for, some basic technical skills as well. I definitely would list the technical skills, that you have, solid experience on, where you're, mid to senior in them. If you've used something, 20 plus years ago and you haven't touched it since, that's something that I might leave off the resume, unless you're going for a specific job that's looking for you to have that specific experience. A great example was, at the beginning of this pandemic, state of New Jersey was looking for COBOL programmers for their legacy, employment system. Obviously, COBOL is pretty outdated. Not a lot of people have it on their resume, but if you're going and applying for that specific job, I'd probably put COBOL at the very, top of my resume that I have experience there. But, if you have a job where, this is a great example. You're looking for, a digital Java developer. If you have COBOL on your resume, it's not really going to be helpful with me determining if you're a good Java developer or not. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Of course, of course. I know it's hard, looking at resumes and trying to figure out like what to put in and what not to put in, and keeping it to the right length as well. Most of us, most people, not just recruiters, hiring managers, they don't spend a lot of time reading resumes. So if you have a resume that's really, really long, and as I was saying, in small font, those are ones it's going to be a big turnoff for a lot of people.
Speaking of that, there is a question about how many pages do you want to see a resume?
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, under 5. And for non-technical roles, I would under 5. And that's,
wow.
I've seen some, I saw a resume yesterday. It was 9 pages in size 9 times New Roman. It was brutal to read. Brutal. Please don't do that.
Well, and you read them. I don't think a lot of people read them. I was recently told to make sure that your resume is very concise and has achievements underneath it. You don't have to list every responsibility you had in that role, just the achievements in the role, and to try to keep it to 2 pages. If you're technical, it's okay to go to 3, just because you can't really keep it in there if you have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But I reduced mine from a solid 3 pages with a 1/2 inch margin and 10-point font to 2.5 pages, and it's just more concise. And like they said to me, and I didn't, you don't always think about this, but the resume isn't supposed to cover your entire life. Your resume is supposed to entice somebody to call you because they see skill sets that they're looking for in that role. So align it with the job description, but still keep it concise and achievement based. So I don't know if that's true, but that's what they do.
I agree with that. And that goes back as well to the made, sage, achieve model. I'm less concerned about, another example of a project manager. The sentence, "I manage the project," is not a helpful sentence. It's a waste of space. It's a waste of words. You can say something like, "I achieved the project successful delivery by, completing it within, the deadline, and save 30% on overhead costs," or something like that. That's a much better sentence for somebody to read and understand what you're able to deliver. Our expectation, if you're a project manager, I would hope that you could successfully deliver the project you're responsible for. If you're not able to do that, I would have major concerns about you as a project manager. So, doing achievements, what you made, what you saved, is definitely going to be better than what my, responsibilities were. I agree. And, non-technical resumes, I keep them to 2 pages. A lot of companies, they'll reject resumes for being too long. Technical resumes, they have a little bit more flexibility there. But again, we don't want a novel. And just being sure to also look, making sure that you don't have the same bullet points over and over again, repeating. They might be similar for the positions, but there's always going to be something different at the company that you're at that you can, highlight better than putting, copy and paste the exact same thing. And that's the same for like professional summaries. I've seen professional summaries that, go on for like 1.5 pages, and it's just kind of regurgitating the same information, but phrasing it just slightly different. And so you just want to, and that's the other reason why, to have somebody else look at your resume, because they'll see things like that you won't necessarily see as well.
I have a question. I understand about keeping the work history, the experience part of LinkedIn with consistent with your resume, but there are lots of folks who there are lots of people who believe that the about section on a resume, the about section on LinkedIn should tell who you are. It should be focused on your job, but should also talk a little bit about why you chose that career, or what really delights you about the work that you do, or some things that are a little bit more personal that you can't really put on a resume, rather than just duplicating the summary from your resume. So how do you feel about LinkedIn about sections that are a little bit more personal?
I'm open both ways, to be honest. I like to see what you've done and some personal characteristics there too. It's definitely a space where you can expand, I agree, than what you'd be able to put on a professional summary. And I think that you really can say yourself even more there as well.
Okay.
And that's another great area too that you can say, like, oh, I'm currently pursuing XXX training, certification, course, and this is why. And you can put like essay completion too.
Okay. All right. Let me see if there's any more questions on the question bar. I don't see any more. Anybody else have a question? You can you can unmute yourself and ask it, or you can put it in the chat box. Lots of people are asking if you will share your PowerPoint presentation with Shannon so she can.
I sure will. I will share it later on today. It wasn't super long, but and I'll share my LinkedIn with everybody as well. If you'd like to connect there, I'm on there pretty much 24/7, I feel like.
Sure.
Okay, well, here's a question. I work in human services. My achievements are soft skill based, and I have experience using Microsoft programs, Salesforce and EMR. So lots of times with soft skills, with when you're in a people field, a non-technical field, what are you going to talk about? How many people you kept from going off the ledge? It's a little bit more difficult to quantify your success.
It definitely can be. And all of those soft areas, I agree completely. It is hard to quantify, but there are areas where you're able to quantify it. And you need to look for those opportunities like, oh, I implemented a new process for this and it helped us to achieve this result. Or I, interacted with X amount of clients and, it ended up in a result of, XXX new job orders or, something like that.
Okay.
Where, you're showcasing your soft skills, you're building relationships, you can work with people well, but then you're also showing what you achieved and what came out of that and what the result was.
Okay. And I do know that even in the social services, very often they do have quotas. They have metrics they have to meet. So we have some more questions that have come in. The first one, I don't exactly understand. How best would I represent myself on my resume or LinkedIn? Oh, how best would I represent myself on my resume or on LinkedIn? And somebody earlier, a couple people had said that they've known some people who don't even have a resume, that they've been hired in some really great jobs completely via their LinkedIn profile. So I think that's what she's asking.
I've heard of it happening. I don't think it's happening as much anymore as it might have been in the past. But there are still plenty of jobs where they're never going to be posted. You're going to get them through referrals and you don't necessarily need a resume. I don't really have, those are roles that I don't really work on too much, unfortunately. And so I don't have, as much, information or background there. But, I think it's great to just always be networking and always be connecting with new people. And you never know, who you might connect with and, what that opportunity might come out with now or in the future.
It's such an unusual thing for you to have gone from being a chef to being an HR person. Did you get training in HR? How did you make that difficult transition? How did you do that? Did you start with HR within the food industry?
I didn't actually. So I have a degree in psychology, and I had that before I was a chef. And then I became a chef and I moved up to a management role very quickly. Right out of culinary school, I became sous chef within 5 months. of a Michelin recommended restaurant in the San Francisco Bay Area. That type of progression usually takes about 5 years. And then, after that, I was in hiring and HR, roles since I was managing a team through every single position I was in. And so I just really capitalized on those skills, my people skills, my management skills, and I really capitalized on my background and volunteer experience as well, working with people. And I just worked really, really hard, and I kept applying for jobs. And luckily, the company took a chance on me. And I've been, studying since then, and, keeping up to date with everything, and, just really, trying to excel as best I can in the HR world. And part of my culinary education, I did have to take HR classes based, it's more so geared towards restaurant industry, but, so I highlighted those certifications as well when I was starting out.
Excellent. Thank you. How does the hiring market in Austin look for your sector and for your sector now and in Q1?
That's a funny question. So I actually, I recruit in Austin, but not as much as I used to. I actually do national recruiting now, and I primarily work out of our couple hubs for my fintech client. But I would say overall hiring is strong. We're seeing more and more recs coming out. I would say from now until Christmas, it's going to slow down. We always see a slowdown. A lot of people are out. A lot of people are covering for other people. And so it gets more challenging to get hiring decisions made during this time. But at the same time, don't stop applying. There's a lot of companies that are still hiring. A lot of people will stop applying during this time. And so there'll be less candidates that you have to compete with. And so I think Q1 2021 is going to be strong. I think a lot of places are still going to be remote, but then starting to go back on site.
Okay,
so be prepared. I would be prepared to go back on site in Q1, Q2 of 2021 for your job.
So what does your company do?
So I work for Matrix, and it's a staffing agency, and I do delivery for Citigroup nationally for all of their technical and non-technical positions.
So do you think that going forward that a lot of companies have learned that it's very cost effective to allow people to work remotely, and they're going to have fewer brick and mortar companies, maybe more WeWork stuff, but not so much going to the office and more working remotely even after COVID?
Yes and no. The reason I say yes and no is because I was just actually reading an article yesterday published by Deutsche Bank about a tax on remote workers, up to $10 a day that they're proposing for people that see this as a privilege. So, it's nothing that, is law or anything, but that's something that companies are considering. There's a lot of large tech companies that are buying up properties in large metro areas. And from what we hear from a lot of our clients is that the expectation is for roles to be going back on site. There might be more flexibility, with that, and maybe a hybrid schedule. But I think, overall, the trend will be towards more remote work, but, companies still want people in the offices, unfortunately.
Okay. What is the first question you ask a candidate in an interview?
That's a hard question. The reason I say that is because it really is dependent on what I'm interviewing them for. And, there's certain questions I need to, kind of get out of the way, on the front end that aren't necessarily, super specific to the position. Some of them are logistical questions. Is this a doable location or commute for you? Are you eligible for this position? Are you okay with the pay rate or salary? There's a lot of companies where there is some, flexibility with pay rates and salaries. There's a lot of companies where it's set, and that is what it is. And so, things like that, you can definitely have negotiations and conversations, but if it's a big disconnect, I don't want to waste your time, and I'm sure, you can understand, I don't want to waste my time either if it's not going to be a role where it's not going to be the right fit for you long term. And I try really hard to be transparent about that and give you, what's going on. I know there's a lot of recruiters out there that are not transparent and they're not honest, and I know it's really hard. But other things, I talk to them about, their experiences, or if they're still working, or why they left their last job. Is this an industry they want to work in as well? People don't really think about that either. There's a lot of differences across industries. Some people don't want to work in finance, healthcare, public sector, and some people want to work in those industries. So it's always good to, have those type of conversations on the front end early on.
Okay, just a couple more. One says, how much do you rely on finding a resume via LinkedIn or other job boards versus referrals from other employees?
I use all of those sources extensively.
Okay.
I don't really rely on any of them more so than the other. I look for, the most qualified candidates that will fit the job. And, I also look at profiles that I might not have a job for right now, but, I know this is a skill set that, I hire for a lot. And so I'd like to, connect with them. If it's another referral from another employee or something, definitely will look at those as well. It doesn't mean that they're going to be the right fit for the job, unfortunately, but luckily we have lots of other jobs that, hopefully we can place them in as well.
Okay, I have a really quick question about LinkedIn. So a friend of mine who pays for LinkedIn said that she looked at a web video or something like that about how recruiters use LinkedIn. And one of the things said that they will never look for somebody, they always look for somebody who is currently employed. That it's, when you look up, say you're looking for a project manager, so you put in the job title and then you say you have your choices of currently employed or in the past. Well, nobody's going to want to look at somebody who did it in the past, so you're looking at somebody who's currently employed. So people who show an ending date for their last employment would not come up on that search, I assume. So that's one question.
Yeah, that's not a filter that I use, and for that exact reason. I like to see my way of searching. Of course, everybody has their own methods, but what we try and do is do more of a general Boolean search and look at key phrases or key skill sets or job titles that maybe they've had. The times where I use like current or past is if I'm looking for a really specific niche thing, and they need to have that exact title or exact experience, or even worked for a specific company, either currently or in the past. But I know there are recruiters out there that do use that feature, and so unfortunately, you might get like discounted because of that. Unfortunately, I hope that they don't. But I would say put an end date if it's within 6 months.
Well, we usually advise people to just try to game the system by having a current job and have their current job be their job title that they're looking for. And then for the company name, say whatever, exploring new opportunities or something like that. So it in the system, it will show that they're working or indicate that they're working. But when you look at it in the details, you see that they're not, they're job seekers. And then a related question, LinkedIn has a new feature where you have to choose the industry. I think it's a required field where you have to say what industry you work in, which is really difficult if you're somebody who
like
has
transitioning
like HR, for example, and you've worked in several different industries, and yet you have to choose one. I believe that that's also a new requirement, and that in some cases another filtering option for LinkedIn is that you have to have worked in a certain industry for a number of years. And so that's
LinkedIn just actually rolled out a new platform last week. I don't know if it's for just like LinkedIn General or LinkedIn Recruiter primarily, but there's more and more search fields. There's more and more descriptors that you can put to turn on and off to get the right search results. And each recruiter and each person will use LinkedIn differently and have a different search strategy. But I think, putting industry, it is helpful. We do look for people that have worked in a specific industry before. And I know, especially for currently my fintech client, they want somebody that's worked in finance before for the most part. So I don't necessarily use that a lot, but sometimes I do.